all doing very well. Thank you, Rosie, for starting the recording, and we will get started. If you are wondering about some of the meetings, the meeting on the 10th, I believe, when I first had it listed, we had the wrong day on the flyer. So that is a Thursday, not a Wednesday, and that's another meeting that we've got. And so I've got kind of a listing. I did a listing of the different meetings and the dates that we would do that I had posted. We're going to do that too for any upcoming ones so you all can know what's going on. I will say today is dealing with 7107 on Carruthers Road. And we've got Mr. Chip Holworth, that I always say your name wrong. I'm sorry.
No, you nailed it. You got it.
He's going to be here talking about what that is. And I think I have some, I may have some people on with us tonight that actually live like right down from where you're doing.
Right.
So we're going to make sure to leave enough time after you talk about what you're going to do so that we can get some input from the community. And you know, this probably will not be the only meeting that we have on this, so that we can have some good conversations about it. And so I am going to get ready to turn it on over to you. Mr. John Honeysucker, I always ask for you. Are you on the line tonight? Okay, do we have anybody monitoring this from the mayor's office?
John, Antoinette, if you hadn't heard, John's daughter passed just recently, like today. So we're all feeling his pain at the moment, and we'll think about him throughout the meeting.
Thank you, John. No, I had not heard that. Okay. Oh, goodness. I had not heard that. Okay. And Miss, there evidently is on 24, there's a bad accident. And so Rosie is with us, but she's locked up in traffic on 24. So Chip, I'll go ahead.
Lady.
Yes.
I made it home.
Oh, you made it
Sorry.
home. Good.
Yeah,
Good. Did you hear about John? Did you hear about John and his daughter?
Yes, they emailed me today.
Hey, why didn't you let me know? Okay.
Well,
Right.
we
Okay.
emailed everybody. But
I'm gonna turn the meeting over to Chip. You got it.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, there's some heavy news to start the meeting, but I appreciate you sharing that, John. Yeah. So I appreciate everyone's time getting started here. I kind of want to orient you where what we're talking about. Grab a screen share here. So this is GIS. The two properties that we're referencing are this 0 Carruthers Road property and the 7107 Carruthers Road property. Y'all are probably familiar with this. Many of you are. Carruthers Crossings right here. Here's Carruthers Road, Battle Road, Cane Ridge Park right here to the north. Contrary to what GIS says, both of these properties are actually within the Carruthers Crossing UDO, not just one. This 0 Carruthers Crossing property is currently zoned RN9, which is similar and like the zoning just to the east of us here and the south. This property, which is the reason that we're here, the 7107 Carruthers property is zoned agricultural. You can see it right there. So that just to kind of level set everyone on where we are. And then I will switch over here to my land plan and zoom out a bit. So what we're proposing to do is essentially follow the Carruthers Crossing UDO. Not essentially, we are following the Carruthers Crossing UDO. We have shown, again, this property right here, you can't see the property line, is zoned RM9, and this property is zoned agricultural. Our plan envisions RM9 for both of those properties, and the density that results from the acreage is what you see here. This is 103 units. They all have garages. We follow the Carruthers Crossing with the roads, both for the major and local streets, kind of working through. They're all rear parked. We have units facing Carruthers, facing Battle, And then on a mini space here in the middle, this has, many of you are familiar with this site. Right about here is the top spot of the property, sort of the highest topo. So we've got this roundabout loop here to work through. And then we want to put in an amenity space, cabana, pool, try to really use our open space here as sort of, creating an organizing principle around the site. And then, providing amenity to the area as we work through. And so we've clustered the units here in groups of 5. We have some that are 8, most of them are 5, 6. Want all the parking to sort of be internal for the most part, and where the units are internal, we've got little areas of open space in an effort to relieve some of that tension. I've got some architectural examples here to the right of what we're thinking about for the townhomes. By way of introduction, I did a poor job with that. April Anderson's on, and she is working with me at Benish, and then Brian LeBlanc is we're working with on this as well with Rulers. So I know we'll have questions for Brian that he will get into, and he can talk a little bit about Rulers and what he wants to do in the future. So more than anything else, Councilmember Lee already referenced it. We're here to inform and gather feedback. More than anything else, we want to hear from you. I think Councilmember Lee was really intentional about making sure people from Carruthers Crossing part of this meeting. So because we're right there next to it, we want to be part of that community. There's some things that we originally met with Councilmember Lee. We talked about, I know that there's a kind of a cut-through issue here on Carruthers. We talked about ways to help mitigate that, working with Public Works and stuff like that. So more than anything else, we're here to gather information from everybody. Happy to answer any questions that we have. I'm going to actually ask April, who put together this plan, to speak a little bit more, or see if she has anything to add to it. Make sure I didn't forget anything.
I'm going to ask, since you have, excuse me for interrupting, but since you have some people with you, I'm going to ask you to also identify one of them to kind of keep an eye on the things that come in the chat, because sometimes when people don't want to ask it out, they'll put questions in the chat room.
Sure, absolutely. Trying to figure out how to see if I can do that myself while sharing. So yeah, April, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Hi, my name is April Anderson with Benish. The only thing that I would add is that we aren't asking for any variances in the UDO design guidelines. We made sure to adhere to the minimum lot size, unit size, make sure as much of the parking is to the rear. The street networks are mimicking what's already in the UDO. We use the standard street sections for this. I think our architecture, it may mimic somewhat what the design guidelines, and I'm sure we'll need to go back through that for the architecture. But maximum 3 stories. We're not asking for any variances from the UDO, basically.
Great point. And I will also introduce Brian LeBlanc with Roars, if he wants to. He will be responding to questions, I'm sure, but if he wants to add anything to that introduction. Brian?
All right, can everybody hear me? All
Yes,
right,
sir.
great. Brian LeBlanc here from Roars. We are a developer, and we think that we've come up with a very interesting plan here for some high design townhomes that can serve a need in the marketplace. We think that there are similar townhomes in and around this area, even right within Carruthers Crossing itself. So it kind of conforms and fits with some of the other offerings that exist in the neighborhood. And we're open to everybody's feedback, but we like how we've been able to design a plan that conforms with the UDO, put the garages in the back and keep the parking kind of out of sight to an extent, and really utilize some of the open green space and the topography, as Chip alluded to create a nice amenity for residents, and it's also, pleasing to non-residents that drive by the project.
So again, we're here to gather feedback and see if we can get aligned with what people envision for this area, for these properties, and more than anything else, just again, gather feedback.
So I don't know if we can always see everybody's hand. So if we don't see your hand or call you, just go ahead and ask your question, please.
Yeah, I can stop
I'm gonna-
sharing and that way we can see more people. You want me to do that?
I don't know, you may want to leave that up in case they want to look at it or
Sure.
want to refer to it. And so I'm just going to ask one person talk at a time, please, and kind of not the same person talk all the time. But I'm going to let you all go, and if you have a question, go ahead, please.
And I have a few from John in the chat that I'm happy to respond to if you want me to go ahead and do that. John, I see your first question about the UDO, or more of a statement, UDO with underlying RM zoning. I hear what you're saying. I can grab some of these properties and see that they call it RM9. I mean, the intent is to mimic what's going on around us. That's the intent, or anything else. But your point's well taken. What are and John asked also, what are the building types that directly adjoin this property? Let's see if I got too many screens going on right now. So the other side, of course, we've got the Cane Ridge Park to the north. I can pull this back right here. Sorry if it's making everybody dizzy. So on the other side of Battle Road is got a more agricultural, it's mostly zoned agricultural, so it's single family homes. On, of course, on to the east of us is one, I'd call that edge of the future Carruthers Crossing, it'll continue to develop. So we're kind of on the edge of that Carruthers Crossing group right there, if that answers your question, John. And then the next one from Meg is, this property is much higher elevation than Carruthers Farm. Sorry. Are you planning to level the property to re-level the property? Will there be a study done to examine water runoff? No, we are not planning on re-leveling the property. We think there's a really neat feature with having that high point sort of right about here. I'll show it on the site plan. Right around here, if you can kind of see the topo falls in all directions from this point, we think that'd be really neat for kind of a gathering place for the community, a pool, clubhouse. So yes, and absolutely, if it moves into design, we will have to do full stormwater evaluation plans, make sure we're capturing all the water, all of that type of analysis. Oh, I got a lot of questions. I'm going to maximize this thing. All right. So the next question is approximate square footage of the homes. April, you may have that data really right handy. I got a lot of boxes I'm flipping through.
I just did the calculations. They're a 40 by 20 on the end units and then a 40 by 18. So you're looking at about 2,000 to 2,400 square feet total if we're going 3 stories max.
Brian, I have a question about price point, if you wanted to touch on that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. We've been evaluating, other similar townhome type projects in the area. There happens to be some great data points within Carruthers Crossing itself. There's some townhome product in there that we've been monitoring that have been some resales over the past 6 or 9 months, and they're in the immediate vicinity. There's a handful of other projects that we've been looking at. These are larger units, so in excess of 2,000 feet. So we're probably targeting something in the vicinity, starting at maybe just south of 400 and going up from there, depending on the size of the unit. But I think the starting price point would be somewhere in the high 3s, mid to high 3s. But we have to continue to study the market and and figure out what the right number is going to be. But we intend to, make this competitive within the overall marketplace.
I think this is kind of related, Brian. The next question I've got is, why are there no single family homes? Would you want to touch that one?
Sure. Well, we wanted to create kind of this self-contained community with a very efficiently laid out site. We've identified, we think there's a lot of buyers in suburban Nashville that like the communal feel of living in a townhome community, and will like the entry price point here on a relative basis relative to a single family home. We're able to offer these at slightly more competitive price points than a true single family home with its own lot. And so for no other reason than we think we're filling a need for a buyer here that likes this sense of community, likes having this amenity package, and having neighbors that will be kind of all in a little bit closer proximity than a spaced out single family home subdivision.
That's great. The next one, John Stern, are you aware of the land use policies abutting this property? Yes, we are in neighborhood evolving. On the other side of Battle Road is rural maintenance. That is the what are they question. And then I guess the policy question, is it a good, not policy, I don't know what the right word is. Is it good planning practice to increase real estate and visual density of levels as you move toward rural policy area? I think that's probably depends on your frame of reference and your point of view. I think given what's already gone on in Carruthers Crossing, and what I hope to be the people view as a success of that development, I think this fits right in there with it. So I think this is one of those examples where it does make sense. So for that policy there to kind of continue that Carruthers Crossing to Battle. Larry asked, how many parking spaces per home and how is that calculated by bedrooms or by home? How much parking for guests? So every house has a garage, and then we've built in a tuck-in space behind each garage as needed. So everyone will have a garage for parking. Ken noted he is less concerned about traffic on Battle as he is about increased traffic on Carruthers. Is there anything done to mitigate that traffic? We will do a traffic study for this, which will take data points of intersections of this. It'll go down to Waldron Road and kind of pull that data to see what needs to happen. There's also some opportunities that we have working with Public Works and Councilmember Lee to think through like what we can do on Carruthers, because again, kind of the point of, this being Carruthers Crossing and sort of I'm trying to think of the right word. It's not a one-off development, right? Like this is a community area. So I think if the community is searching for something, I think you can get to a place where NDOT and some others will look at that more comprehensively than they would if it was just a one-off development. So that would be our approach. Again, we do have to do a traffic study first. And then we do kind of evaluate what that looks like from a traffic perspective, and then work with council member in the community to figure out what makes sense.
And I don't know if you remember us talking about this, because Carruthers Farms has a very bad issue with traffic going straight through there and speeding.
Yes,
so we talked about some type of traffic calming in that area, and that might not come out or show on the survey. So even if it's not, if it doesn't, that's kind of needed to look at that area as well.
Absolutely. Whether it's the humps, the bumps, there are different mechanisms to do that. Everyone's got a different opinion on what works best. The next question I see is, what is the project's estimated completion date? I think I'm gonna throw it to Brian in a minute. Of course, we've got some, we have to work through a process, both working with you guys through that process, which takes some time. I'm not to a point where, I want to commit to dates for that yet, because we want to engage with you, make sure we're all good there. And then there is a design process that will go once we get to the point where we can all get on the same page from a rezoning perspective. So that's, again, another lead time. So Brian, if you want to kind of take it from there.
Yeah, using rough dates here, I wouldn't expect that we'd be in a position to start construction on this for at least a year from now. And based on construction timeframes currently, I think that this would take about 18 months plus or minus to complete. So doing the math there, we're well out into the second half of 2024 before we would start delivering sets of buildings at this project.
The next one is from John Stern. Starting the UDO, what are you asking Metro to do? The one parcel, sorry if I move that too fast, it can get dizzy when people are doing that to me. This is zoned agricultural right now. So what we're asking is to rezone this piece of property from AR 2A to RM9. Let me flip back. It would be helpful to see the ratio of parking per projected resident over the age of 16. I'm not sure how to estimate how many residents will be over 16. I know Brian's smarter than me and he can figure that out. So we can take that under advisement and come back with some data for that. John's
Yeah,
next
I
one.
mean, there may be some, we can come up with some assumptions on that. There may be some folks that are single individuals that live in these townhomes, and there may be some families. So we'd have to come up with a blended assumption about how many individuals are in each unit and an age. But I would expect that it would be in excess of more than one per adult aged person. But we can follow up with that.
I've seen some more questions go up in the chat room, and I know you're monitoring that, but I also see a hand from Melissa.
Okay.
Can I go next?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that rezoning that you are requesting, is that for the whole project?
No, this property right here is already zoned for what we want to do. It's just this property right here that is zoned agricultural.
And how many homes?
So we're showing 103.
Okay. And I don't see any talk about materials or any of that. Were you planning on talking about that?
We can. I'm going to again defer to Brian if he's got some thoughts on the design piece. April and I are the horizontal land planning people, so we're not the pretty. Well, that's not true. April put together this, and I think that's pretty good looking. But from the aspect of what the unit's like, I'm going to defer to Brian.
Yeah, we're very early on and we haven't started design yet, but we have done a little bit of this visioning session. If Chip, if you want to scroll up with your or zoom out, yeah. So here are some of the architectural facade examples that an architect that we are considering using has done. We think that it has a nice aesthetic feel here with great landscape and front door entry experience for some of these townhome examples. I think it's going to evolve a lot over time, but we'd probably anticipate incorporating some stone or brick elements into the facades to kind of enhance the look here and make them attractive for folks. And I think over time, we'll probably get into much more level of specificity around design, but we're going to make these very nice so that they fit in with the neighborhood.
My last question is, would you build even if you don't get that portion rezoned?
We would evaluate that certainly. What I would say is it's a very skinny piece of land to be building something on. might be a challenge from an efficiency standpoint to do it on a standalone basis. And that's just me saying, that's an off the cuff answer, but it's difficult to develop on something that is not entirely that efficient and pretty thin in terms of the shape.
And sorry, I just thought about another question. Do you guys only develop homes? You don't develop any other type of construction?
Well, I am local here in Nashville, and I am growing the business for my company into the Southeast. And we do a variety of different product types. Townhomes is a new product that we think has a lot of viability, and we really like in today's current environment, and especially in fantastic neighborhoods like Nolensville. So that's something that we're very focused on right now. And historically, my partners have done senior continuum of care communities. They have done some for sale condominium. We've done some more traditional, garden style apartment projects as well. And even as of late, Roars is actually getting into a relatively new asset class, which is kind of a 55 plus age restricted concept. So we do a variety of things, mostly housing related.
Thank you.
Should I move back to the chat, or is there anyone else want to ask a question? I'll move back to the chat. John says this was, I believe, the school village. Maybe one of those parcels were meant to be schools. I do not know the answer to that question.
I can answer that.
Okay.
I think Billy has his hand up too.
Okay, sorry.
I'll
Go
answer
ahead.
this and then you can go to that. Looking at the master plan, it looks like this lot that's in the UDO is open space, and then the other one is left out of the master plan. The school is meant further east of this site, but what's adjacent is neighborhood edge and neighborhood general. So that's why we made the assumption if we were going to include these two, or the one lot with the UDO, we would pick one, and we went with neighborhood general.
Price? No, sorry, not Mr. Price. Billy, sorry.
Thank you. My question is more concerned with the interior of these buildings. You say they're going to be 3 stories. Can you give us a brief description of what type of rooms will be on each floor? For example, bedroom on the 2nd floor, living room on the bottom, whatever, bathrooms are where. And also, is the garage area included in the square footage totals that you gave us?
Sorry, say that last part again for me.
Is the garage included in the square footage total? I think you said there's going to be 2,000 to 2,400 square feet. Is the garage square footage included in that total?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Brian, you want to speak to floor plan a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Typically, what we've looked at with these types of projects on townhomes is you will end up with some level of common space on the level that the garage is on, potentially a living room or an entertainment area, and you on the 2nd level is usually kind of an open format, nice kitchen with a big island that spills into the primary living room. And then the 3rd level, and you might even have, and you'll have a bathroom on that level, maybe a half bath. And most of the time we will end up putting the bedrooms on the top.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Again, some of these, I'm going back and forth in the chat. So I think some of these probably get answered later on down, but I'm just going to go as they came in.
That
The
is
next,
pretty damn shitty right there. That
Somebody, somebody is open, somebody's not me. Somebody has forgotten to mute themselves. They're not muted. So please just check your stuff if you're not talking.
You know, Rosie can mute them.
We have a hot
I
mic.
do, but I was asking that they would do it first without her doing that.
It's not
So,
letting me.
I'm,
for some
yeah, I'm
reason.
sorry, Chip, go ahead. Now you're muted,
Chip, you're on.
Chip. We see
Chip,
your
you're
mouth
on mute.
moving.
Not sure how that happened. I'll go back. So the question was, would you incorporate the AR2A parcel into the UDO? The answer is yes. That would be our intent. The next question was, do you have an alternative design with fewer units? Not right now. We did this, kind of what we thought made sense. You know, we want to come to the neighborhood, ask questions, get feedback, really learn more from what you guys are thinking, and then take that back, internalize that, and respond accordingly. More than, you know, definitely purpose here is to inform of our thought process, not to advocate for something specific. So no, we do not have an alternative design with fewer units at this time. But open, absolutely looking for the feedback. I'm looking for question marks, and I don't see a question mark from what you said there, John. But I see what you're saying about the facades on the homes. Again, this was exploratory. I think, you know, we will 100% want to be respectful for the area, and open to some suggestions and thoughts about what facades look like.
Yeah, what I was suggesting, Chip, is that we take a look at what the standard for this community is and the visuals that the UDO that was created are. So if you'd share the screen with me, I'd like to share them with you, because you may not have been down here or something, because these images don't look anything like the facades that are in the community I've lived in for, I don't know, 8-10 years now. So
sure, I've stopped sharing. If you should, Rosie, can John share, or do you have to give him that permission? Maybe I can do it.
Rosie's got the power, I'm here to tell you.
Let me see what I can do.
I can not give him permission. I can only remove John, which I know none of us want.
Is everything okay or not really?
Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
All right, do you guys see
Okay.
the school village up?
Yeah.
Rosie, you want
Well,
to mute.
okay. Well, then let me,
Can everybody see the school village up? Criminy. I love and I hate.
I see it.
All right, good. So this is the piece of property that you're wanting to take from green space in this UDO into a high density RM9 3-story townhome configuration. These houses right in here are all single family, beautiful homes. I've got images of those as well, but it just doesn't. So when we start looking at the visuals that the original creators were looking at when talking about this area, we were looking at basically 2-story homes. These are all single family in nature, but nothing that looks like the imagery that you're showing to us.
Well, I think that's why we're here, right? We want to present and respond more than anything else.
Okay, well, so what we have on the back, what you're butting up against are some really beautiful, nearly all brick or all stone, 2-story homes with garages that are set back like these are here. So it would make some sense Well, it makes a lot of sense, given the context of Battle Road, which is currently on one side, a rural development pattern, which isn't going to change in the near future. And their 1 and 2 story buildings on 2 or more acres, usually about 5 acres. The transition from that side of the road to this side of the road would make more sense to have large lot, single family developments on it. It makes, I've only looked at this stuff for a few decades, but this doesn't make any sense to me. Not on the edge of what I think is a beautiful and beautifully designed UDO in Cane Ridge, Tennessee. So happy to talk with you more about it, but I'm
Sure.
afraid that the cost of your land, the $3 or $4 million that these folks are asking for, may preempt your ability to do anything on a scale that makes sense. Am I close to being correct?
Yeah, I'm not gonna, so one, I don't think that we've gotten to a place where we're presenting and responding to feedback. So we haven't gotten to a place where we've done iterations to figure out what does and doesn't work. So I don't want to presume that.
Okay.
What we wanted to do, and the intent of this meeting, was present an idea, come back, get your feedback, and then circle back with everybody to get on the same page. So I think that conversation is probably premature, but I do appreciate the feedback.
They may not have really been ready to present everything. One of the things that I wanted, because I had some of the residents asking me about, they heard something was coming, what was coming. So that's one of the reasons, before we have everything together, I guess, like they usually do, while we brought this and presented. So they are truly, when they're saying, of course, they have an idea of what they want to put there, but they, the purpose that I asked them to come for was so that they could hear the feedback from the residents, and especially those that, like you, live in that area, and
Right.
And
Well,
get the input.
That's great. Now, what I'm showing here is the typology of the neighborhood, how it's supposed to fit in, and where this type of multifamily stacked flat attached housing should fit in is in town center, possibly neighborhood center, but certainly as you move to the neighborhood edge, which by anybody's definition, this is the neighborhood's edge, we transition into medium detached single family housing and large detached single family housing. I think that's where we are today. It would be, I was pleased to hear from Chip back in October of last year about this project, and glad that you have spent the last 3 months putting this together. And we'll look forward to chatting with you some more about it. But as it sits, it doesn't look like it fits in with the Carruthers Crossing UDO that I've been a part of since 2005, during the initial development of it.
Chip, can you put your stuff back up again in case somebody else has some specific questions about that, especially in light of what John was saying?
Yeah,
Somebody
again,
else
Don,
has some-
I do appreciate the feedback. I value it because I know you're such an advocate for that area. And so it's taken, received, and we will internalize, and of course.
John, do you live in that area?
Yes, ma'am. Not only do I live here, I was engaged with not engaged to the initial designer of the property, but I've been working in the Cane Ridge community and leaders of the Cane Ridge community since the late 80s, early 90s. And then with this particular developer, and this particular developer since 2005. And I moved here in 2012, 13, I think.
Okay, that's what I was trying to bring out, that you also did live in that area. Do I have anybody else on that actually lives in that area?
Myself, Eva, and Stony Brooks live on Carruthers, Grace Point, where we're at.
I live on Grace Point / Carruthers.
The Arenders live on Carruthers as well, just down the street from this.
I live on Winding Creek, so I live really close by. I'm at the edge of that, what the new development is trying to put.
I live on Grace Point Lane.
We live on Winding Creek.
I live on Moira Circle, kind of across the way from this. So I would see this from my home as well.
Great. So it sounds like that we have quite a few people who are actually right there in the area. So that's what I was trying to find out. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chip or whoever was speaking, but I just wanted you to see that you do have people on here that are actually living right there where you're planning on doing something.
Back to the chat. I think the question, and again, sorry if I missed one, please let me know. Really the one I'm seeing is, does the neighborhood have a name? I don't know that it does. Brian, do you have a name yet?
No, we're not at the point where we've selected, gotten into that quite yet.
Tammy.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Thank you, Lauren. Will this development be completely separate from Carruthers Farms, or there will be shared amenities, HOA maintenance requirements, et cetera? This will be a separate development with its own amenity, to be determined what that amenity does for the neighborhood, things like that. I would imagine, Brian's looking to create the neighborhood. So I would imagine that there was an opportunity for people to use that. I don't want to commit him to it. He's still far away in this process, but the intent is to contain the amenities for our development within our area with the pool cabana kind of on that top of that hill, the green space right there, sort of organizing principle for our development on our property. If that answered Danielle's question, let me know if I didn't.
I see a hand from Brittany too. I can't see all of them, so there may be others, but I do see Brittany, so she.
Did we lose Brittany?
Maybe it was left up when she was saying that she lived here. I don't know. It's disappeared now.
Got it. The next question is there a dog park in this plan? There is not a specifically called out dog park. I mean, we've got some areas, if you can see my mouse, we've got some areas for open space up here. There's obviously some buffers as well. We've got 20-foot buffer up here, buffer to the side. There's plenty of places for dogs. We have not specifically called out a dog park area. I think it kind of limits what it is if it's just for dogs, but and again, I don't want to commit Brian to anything, but open to that conversation if that's important for sure.
Yeah, look, I think there's a very healthy pet population these days and people love their dogs. So we would certainly evaluate putting something in here to accommodate everybody's dog. It's a very common thing these days, and people love it. And it's something that would be seriously considered, whether it be a dedicated park or an area like a dog run of sorts. I think we could be creative with that, and I think it's a great idea.
I would like to say that if there's somebody else's hand that I can't see up, just go ahead, please, and say something. I see something, I think, from Adam. But if you don't speak up, you've got about 15 minutes. So we have quite a few that live right there in that area. I know, what we're doing will be important to everybody because it'll have some impact on Carruthers Road, on actually on Burkett too, coming in and out and getting in and out, and on things that happen to everybody, but specifically, and I do know that cut through that you all were talking about, and that's why we needed some traffic calming so that that won't continue and be a straight road racing in there too. But if you do have something specific that you want to ask, especially if you live right in that area, some people who may not have asked questions before or something, please make sure that you put your question in the chat, or just go ahead and if we don't call you and nobody's talking, then go ahead and ask your question, please, or give your input.
John, I see your question. I think, again, I'll reiterate, we're here to gather feedback and then come back, work on our side, and then come back and work with you guys. So that's our intent. That's the intent of this meeting, and we'll move forward that way. Adam, your question, we're a long way from construction. We have a lot of meetings to go before we hit our next milestone. So there will be a lot of communication from us on this. Long before you.
And Adam, there'll be another meeting. There'll be another meeting with you all. So we will have another community meeting on this before, and maybe two, I don't know, but before this moves forward.
I'm kind of scrolling through to make sure there's no hands up. So I can only see 6 people at a time.
Yeah, I hate to rain on your parade, and really don't mean to. I know you guys have put a lot of thought in this. You're limited by what it's going to cost you to develop. Understand those limitations, and also the other kind of buildings you're seeing in and around Nashville. It is just absolutely inappropriate development pattern for a property abutting this urban design overlay. And that's a layperson's opinion. Is there anybody on your team who is AICP certified?
Sorry, say that again. I apologize.
Is there anybody AICP credentialed on your team?
April, I can't remember if you have that or not.
No, sir. I'm a PLA, professional landscape architect.
So it's a designation that says a lot to people, in that there's significant standards of what community participation is like, and the like. So thanks guys for putting it together. I just don't think it works for this beautiful 3,000 unit community where only 400 or 500 units have been built already. That's right, Billy, 3,000 units out here, buddy. So
John, it wouldn't be a meeting without you. I'll tell you that.
You know, that's right.
No, I do. In all seriousness, I appreciate your passion for it and your advocacy for it. It makes these plans better. So I do thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Good night.
We've got about 10 more minutes. Would anybody else like to weigh in? And I'm kind of thankful it's not another 7-Eleven either. I've seen a lot of those go up lately. I kind of thought they had gone by the wayside. Then they all start appearing here.
I have a question about the roads. I'm not referring really to the traffic so much as the actual condition of the roads between here and when you get to Burkett and then you go to Nolensville Pike. The road in many places is totally inadequate. There's no shoulder, there's nothing. If there's an accident or whatever, there's no place to go. So I'm wondering how putting so many more people in this area is going to help with that, or if there are any plans to maybe improve those roads.
I can respond to some of that, Councilmember. Would you like me to?
Sure. The only thing that I was going to say is a part of putting it up, they will have to do some type of improvements, not all the way where it needs to be. Because if you come out of yours and go on to cut through to Nolensville to the left, I think part of that will end up being in Williamson as well. But that's a small little curvy, scary road back there. But we can ask them to do something for like the road, like right there, kind of in front, and maybe even down a little further as a kind of thing to say, well, you want to go up here? We need some improvements. We don't need just a lane. We need some widening of the roads right up here. We need some of those improvements. Can you do that since we're letting you put all of this more density in this area, if it goes that far? And so Chip, go ahead. That's all I was going to say.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We're going to do a traffic study, and part of that traffic study, they'll lay out the strips that everyone's driven over, and they'll get the traffic counts, and then based off that evaluation, they'll present in the study. It says like, hey, here's what needs to happen here. If it gets over a certain point, I think it's the acronym is LOS for level of service, that they'll make recommendations like this shoulder needs to be wired, these lanes need to be wired, you need to add a lane. We've had projects where literally they've said you need to add traffic lights. Those all come out, and then the traffic engineer coordinates with NDOT, Nashville Department of Transportation, kind of to work on a set of requirements that they'll want to see should this development go forward. So understand 100% what you're saying. There is a process for that evaluation that we will be required to do. And that just hasn't happened yet, because we want to make sure before, one of the things that we have to do for a traffic engineer is we have to give them a site plan of what we're going to build, and we want to come to the neighborhood and talk through site plan ideas first before we got to the point where we were authorizing a traffic study, if that makes sense. Larry asked, how valid is the traffic study during COVID? So there's a period of time when they were adjusting for counts using 2019 counts. They have now kind of blending those rates because the numbers are getting back up to where they are. I think everyone will acknowledge that, what it's like to drive on Carruthers feels like a lot like it was probably pre-COVID, but there's an adjustment for that number to address COVID.
I want to ask you about something, Chip, and I'm not going to exactly know how to ask this because I don't know what I'm talking about completely, but I'm talking with some of our police force about it. We just passed this thing to get the license plate readers. I know some communities want to put up cameras to kind of monitor their area and keep them safe. There's something that developers can do when they're doing their development to put in the wiring or whatever under there so that it's easier to hook things up and to do that type of thing after it's finished. So do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I presume what you're saying is like, can we include infrastructure for that type of equipment down the road? If you got to put electric in and things like that, so might as well just include it with it. So I'm not Brian. Brian's the ultimate decider of these things, but I would presume that would be acceptable.
Yeah, because I think that would be a plus if we decide that this is something that will go up, because I'm going to start asking all of our developers that now, as communities are wanting cameras to keep their area safe. So, okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm reading the last part because this doesn't all come up. I'm reading the last part of this message that's talking about traffic calming, and it was saying maybe there should be a gatekeeper at the entrance instead of speed bumps. I know that we have talked about different ways to manage the speed. Not only are there bumps, but there are these hump things, or there are the ridges in the road, and there are also circles that can be used. So I'm not sure we've gotten to the final point where we can say this is what's going to go there. It just needs to know that there's going to have to be some kind of traffic calming mechanism within the community. So we have about 5 minutes. Is there anyone who had put something in the chat, because I can only see that, that needs to say something or ask a question before we say bye to everybody, knowing that they will be before you again, and that since, oh, April, and that they have been taking notes. God bless you.
Yeah.
They've been taking notes and putting things in as well. Well, I will say to you all, I hope you all have a good night. I wish you all well and be safe, whatever happens tonight. I'm going to ask you all, because he's always a friend to ours and tries to do whatever we need him to do. I'm going to ask you also to say a prayer for John and his family. And any of you that are having any difficulties, because we all are, we just don't always wear them out. God bless you all, and I hope things are safe with you as well. And see you at the next meeting. Thank you so very much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Good night. Thank you.